I gotta apologize to our viewers. For some reason, technical difficulties. I can't get the video to working, but at least I have audio. That's why I have a little thing in my ear. For some reason, it only records when I have the AirPods in. So, audio it is. Okay, we're Kuvav Medalef, 106a. And there's a little above halfway, there's a line that's inside of parentheses. Yeah, you see the line inside the parentheses, and we're the line just above that. See it? Yeah, by Yisa, that's correct. So the pasuk now begins. We're analyzing, of course, Bilam's story, and we're talking about his life and the things he had to say. And now, well, actually, till now we've been talking about his entry and the people he met along the way, his conversations with Balak, his conversations with Yisrael. And now we come to that which he actually shared and said. And it says like this: Yisem Shaloi, and literally means he raised up on his own, meaning to say now he begins to deliver his own ideas. That's kind of what the pasuk means. And he says, Yisem Shaloi, he begins now his own sermon, his own speech. And he says, Oi, woe, or wow, depending how you read it. Mi yichya, who shall live, misum kel, and God does this, or when God places this. So it's a little bit cryptic, as much of the prophecies, and the question is, what does this mean? There's a few different versions. First of all, 2 versions in the Gemara, and then there are some versions in Rashi, and we'll try to share them. Rabbi Levi says, firstly, Oi wo mishim machaya asbe b'shem kel. Woe is to the one who lives a life assuming that he is a god. One version in Rashi of this line. That is a reference to Parai and others like him who claim to be independent, self-sustaining, self-sufficient human beings that do not really need to rely on Hashem. That's the first statement. Interestingly, that idea itself, obviously Parai is in the extreme, but every Jew has to think about when they say that, not literally, but figuratively. Right? I think we had this before. A person who says, my business is what got me my wealth, to one degree or another, is the subtle version of Parai. Parai saying, I run my own life, I don't need to rely on Hashem. But Parai took it to the extreme and saying, I made myself. A Jew doesn't say, I made myself, God forbid. A Jew understands that Hashem runs the world. Hashem runs the world, but my business still got me what I need. So it's a subtle, minor version that we have to be aware of. And in a way, we talk about free ourselves from Egypt. Right? That's the stories of the parshas we're learning this week, is leaving Mitzrayim, going to Mount Torah. Okay, we just finished that last week. We're already getting into the laws. But we're coming from the story of the Exodus of Egypt. So leaving Egypt and leaving Parai, in some degrees, leaving that mindset, leaving this mindset behind where we think of ourselves as the source of our own life, rather than acknowledging that our source of life is from Hashem and Hashem only, and putting our trust in Him. And how much freer we would be of all anxieties and worries if we really felt that way. Because when the person thinks that he's the one who's responsible for everything, then anxiety can, this is going to work out, that's not going to work out, this isn't going to work out, how's this going to work out, to try this way, try that way. And a person has a confidence, right? This is a big theme in the Chovos Halevavos, right? In chapter, what is it? 4? 4? The gate of faith. It's a big theme. And a person has that proper faith in Hashem. He stops thinking like Parai, frees himself of that Egypt, that he's taka free. He's free. He's free of anxiety, free of worry, because he has full confidence that whatever is going on, he does what he has to. As Hashem set out that we have to set up our life in a natural way. That when he does that, he lets go of the anxiety around that. Lets go of the Parai way of thinking, and that he's in control. And that way is taka free. So that's one reading of this statement of Bilam. Rabbi Levi says, woe is to the one who lives himself as if he is a god. That is one interpretation. Another interpretation in that very line is, in a way it's kind of similar. Rashi says, woe is to the people who feed themselves in this physical world and Perek means like to remove or to cast off the yoke of Torah from their shoulders, and they fatten themselves. So, Oy Misha Machaya Atmoi, B'Shem Kel means to say, woe is the one who lives himself in replacement of the name of Hashem. Right, the first reading was, woe is the one who lives himself as if he is a god. Now the other reading is, woe is the one who lives himself instead of living with Hashem. Meaning puts too much emphasis on his self, his physical enjoyment, and hedonism is an extreme version of it. An extreme version of it is hedonism, where a person says nothing matters, I might as well just live up my life. Well, that's nihilism. But hedonism is let me just indulge to the absolute max and cast off any sense of responsibility and duty to Hashem, and to some degree as an extension to other people as well. But like all these, like the other thing, like the first interpretation, these have their subtleties in our own life. Where a person says, I serve Hashem, but once a year when I go on vacation, I serve myself. I serve myself. So maybe we're not as extreme in this, absolute hedonism, but as in all these things have subtleties and layers and levels, and we have to be aware of that as well. So those are two readings in the first reading of this pasuk, which is Rabbi Shimon ben Levi. Now we have Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Oy lo l'umma shetimtza b'shasha kadosh baruch hu oisa pidyon labanov. Woe is to the nation who shall be present when God decides to redeem his only people, his only children. Meaning to say, that there's going to come a time when Mashiach comes, and Hashem is going to redeem his people, and at that time, the permission that God usually allows, which we discussed here in the past, the permission that God usually goes. There are times when God allows, for whatever reason he sees fit, to allow for nations to have their control over the Jewish people, at least in the political and physical sense. But when time comes and Hashem decides to send Mashiach to redeem the Jewish people, a nation that tries to hold back, assuming that for the last 2,000 years he was able to do so, woe unto that nation. Because the only reason why they were able to have that control is because Hashem allowed. And now Hashem is redeeming, permission is not granted anymore. And thus, woe is to that nation. That's what this is Rabbi Yochanan's reading of Bilam's statement. Woe is to the nation who will be, woe is the one who's living, misumu kel, when God is doing that, when God has decided to redeem his people. And the metaphor that Rabbi Yochanan invokes is as follows. Bi matal ksusai, ben Levi, the Levi, who is going to put his, who's going to hold back? So it seems like it's concealment, or hang his hat. I guess that's an old metaphor for that. Who's going to hang his hat in this situation? Who's going to put himself between the lion and her cub? It's Levi and Levi. B'shashin is cooking. Oh yeah, okay, lion and lioness. Right, a Levi is used in the bracha of Yaakov, referring to a lion. But what's the word for the cub? There's a pasuk that uses the word cub. That's it, Gore, that's it. Mixing up that word. Sorry, yeah. Yeah. Lavia is, it's lion and lioness. So, B'shashin is fucking zemzeh at the time when they want each other. Which, of course, would fit with something we talked about before, that the Jewish people during exile are like different metaphors. One of them was a living widow, meaning someone whose husband is alive but not with her. There was one metaphor. Another metaphor was a woman who's during her time when she can't be with her husband, during that monthly cycle. She's a nida. It's the halachic term. So now their husband and wife can finally be together after 2,500 years. Don't get in the way. That's the meaning of this pasuk. Sorry? Yeah. Which actually means it's an interesting thing. It means that on one hand, all this exile, this long time of exile is separation between Hashem and Yidden. But at the same time, in a twist, it's kind of, it's building up. All the excitement, like physically between a husband and wife when there's separation during some time, it builds up excitement towards when they can finally be together. So a similar sense, there's all this time during exile, it's separation, but it's also Hashem and the Jewish people building up excitement for when they can finally be together. And therefore, as Bilam says, woe to the nation that tries to get in the way at that time. Okay. Now we continue with Bilam's statement, and that is, Vitzim miyad kitim. Vitzim is a boat, a ship, that comes from the coast of place called Kittim. So Rashi says that Kittim is a place. I believe the modern Israeli shipping company called Sim got their name from here. You ever seen those ships? ZIM? They get their name from here. Sim. Rashi says Sfigas Gedolas, the great big ships, like cargo ships. Comes from Kittim, sorry. So Amar Rav says, what is this referring to? What's this big boat that's arriving from a place called Kittim? As we'll see in the next line, the pasuk goes on to say that this ship that arrives or tortures or oppresses Ashur, Assyria, and then it oppresses Aver, and then it too shall be destroyed forever. That's how the verse goes on to say. So it's kind of cryptic. This ship arrives, oppresses Ashur, oppresses Aver, and then destroys it. So what's going on here? What's this a reference to? So Amar Rav explains. First of all, he begins with what the ship is. Libur Nasaper. It's funny, it actually doesn't give any kind of explanation what this is. He says it's a place. But what is that? So Rabbi Steinsaltzer tells us that it is a Roman legion. That's what Libur Nasaper means. He puts in his notes here, there's a term, is Leon Aspir, something like that, and he shows the Greek original term, and it's kind of like means a legion of some sort. I don't know. So he gives like the language history to how we got from Libur Nasaper as an Aramaic version of what was referred to as a Roman legion. Okay. So, sorry?
One's a place, one name of the kingdom.
Right. Apparently, this is the Wish, that's why I said. Apparently, the correct version of this term is Legion Aspir, like with a G. I imagine the silent G. Yeah, deriving from the Latin legio, genetic legions, right? Which was the largest regiment in the Roman army, comprising some 3,000 soldiers. Aspir might be related to the Greek Sepiria, a tactical unit in the Ptolemaic army. Ptolemaic is like the Egyptian vassal kings. Army of Greek military units. Okay, whatever. Any rate, big armies are arriving from strong countries with thousands of soldiers. Where are they going? The Inu is Asher. They're oppressing Asur. The Inur Aver, and they're oppressing Aver Ad. So, and then the verse goes on to say, the Gamhu Ad Aver, then they too shall be destroyed forever. So what does this mean? What does it do to the Jewish people more specifically? So explains Rav, Ad Ashur, when it says they're oppressing Ashur, it means what are they doing until they get to Ashur? At Ashur, this legion that's arriving, once they get to Ashur, they're oppressing. And what are they doing before? So explains the Gemara. Ad Ashur, Kotli Mikdal. Good morning. From Ashur, or till Ashur, they are killing anybody in their wake. And that would include, God forbid, whatever Jewish people are living there in exile. From there going forward, meaning from Ashur starts oppression rather than genocide. And therefore, Mishabdi Shibudi, enslave, they shall enslave, meaning they'll enslave any Jewish people that are there. But from there going forward, there's no more genocide, just enslavement and oppression. Subjugation, yeah. So Rashi says it's talking about the future time, meaning it hasn't happened yet. But I think it also it could be like a reference to Alexander the Great's army. I don't know the exact history, but I know that he treated Israel more leniently than he did other countries he went through beforehand. So it could be like a reference to that.
It could be to the Romans, because the Romans, that's their empire as far as
the empire
stopped there.
Right, but the pasuk over here says that he keeps on going after, but they just don't kill.
Yeah, no, but he had influence like with the Bible, but never controlled it.
The Romans did also control the Jewish Israel.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe it's reference to that too. And they
stopped the battle.
That's where their murdering stopped. Yeah, so it could be it's reference. Anyway, Rashi says it's talking about the future time. So Rashi says that. But he goes on to say that it's talking about the future time.
No, of course. This is a prediction of the future, but it also had an indication.
But it could be indication before.
An indication that
right.
from Mashiach. It's ironic that Bilam is talking the most psukim of Mashiach in the Torah actually are Bilam's.
Yeah, it's
a little bit with Yaakov, and then something.
We had it before. We had it.
Bilam at the most. This last prophecy only about the Mashiach.
There's also a reference to further compound that, which we talked about that before, which is the donkey of Mashiach, connected to donkey of Bilam. They're both coming on donkeys, and Bilam is the one talking about Mashiach. We talked about before. The Mashiach is the ultimate transformation, elevating even the lowliest places, that it too should be obvious for godliness. It could reflect in the name Chamar, donkey, which also means materialism, elevating materialism, and then coming from Bilam, connects to the fact that Mashiach's lineage is also borderline questionable, right? You have Rus, you have David's relationship with Bathsheba, you have Yehuda and Tamar, you have all these relationships that could. Anyway, that's a separate topic which we talked about in the past there quite a bit. Okay, moving forward with what Bilam had to say. Bilam says to Balak, Hindi haylach la'ami. This pasuk is Bamidbar 24:14. Hindi haylach la'ami. I'm going back home. Now or presently I will come and I will tell you I'm leaving. So, giving you my last parting words. I will advise you. I will advise you on what. Okay, literally, the way the verse should be read is that which shall be done to this nation by your nation, meaning what you guys should do to the Jewish people. That's what the Bilam means to say to Balak. I'm going to advise you what your people shall do to these people, what you should do to the Jews. But if you look at the words literally, Ashiyasa Amazeh, what this nation shall do le'amecha, to this nation. So the way I translated it was, what this nation shall be done, the letter le, lamed, being by, meaning I'll tell you what this nation should be, what should happen to this nation by your nation. That's how I'm translating the word lamed. But if you take the word lamed literally, as it usually is, it's to, which would mean I'm going to advise you what this nation shall do to your nation. So if you read it quite literally, it's actually not what Balak, the Midianites, should do to the Jews, but rather what the Jews shall do to the Midianites, if you take it quite literally. So it's obvious from the context that he doesn't mean to advise Balak what the Jews are going to do to you. He means to advise what Balak should do to them. And therefore, you would translate the word, the lamed, literally as by. I'll tell you what should happen to this nation by your nation. But the Gemara is taking it actually quite even more literally, to mean to, and making it into a drush, making it into a homiletic interpretation rather than what the meaning literally is. So it's funny how the non-literal meaning is actually more literal than the literal meaning. It's not uncommon like that, where the context tells you what he means, but the context is written with a literal interpretation that gives you an allusion to something else. So the context is what your people should do to Jewish people, but the literal words in those contexts implies what the Jews shall do to them, and therefore the Gemara says like this.
Is that a way to try to conceal the truth from them?
Correct. It's meant to embed in his words a deeper truth by context versus literal meaning having different things, each one telling you something else. And if the Gemara says, it should have said, I will tell you what your nation shall do to this nation. Not what this nation to that nation, to your nation. So Amar Abu Bakr says, this is like somebody who curses himself, but hangs his curse on somebody else. Meaning in cursing somebody else, actually talking about his own fate. So he's really cursing himself rather than cursing Jewish people. Yeah, that itself is interesting. The Baal Shem Tov has a similar teaching about the Jews themselves. The Mishnah says that a person should know a person should look at three things: where he came from, where he's going, and there's a few different Mishnahs. One is know before whom you're going to give a din v'cheshben. So the literal meaning is know before whom you're going to give a reckoning. Because one day everything you do is going to be. I'm mixing with different Mishnah. Hakol b'sefer nechtavim.
In the eye that the sees and the ear that hears.
And then, I'm mixing up two mishnahs. But anyway, one mishnah says, know before whom you're going to give a reckoning. One thing. The Baal Shem Tov points out that the language is, the wording, the order of the language is a little bit peculiar. It says, know before whom you're going to give a din, v'cheshbon. Din means a judgment or a verdict, and cheshbon means an accounting. So Baal Shem Tov should be the other way around. First you do a cheshbon, first you do accounting, and then you do a din, then you do a judgment. Why judgment, din, and then cheshbon, accounting? So explains the Baal Shem Tov like this. That a person comes l'mayla, a person goes up above, and they describe to him a hypothetical. Hypothetical. If a person did this, and this, what would you think would happen to that person? And then the neshama gives a judgment. And then they tell him, oh, that person that we just described to you, that was you. So first there's a judgment. First is a din. They make you give a din. They make you give a judgment. And then comes the cheshbon. Then comes the reckoning to show you that the judgment you cast applies to you. So it's din, then cheshbon. So I was listening on my way down to New York last week. I was listening to a chabring in a gathering with the Rabbi, and they would quote this teaching from the Baal Shem Tov. The Rabbi asks two questions. First of all, like, why does Baal Shem Tov care if we know that? Like, why is it important to know that we give the judgment for ourselves? What's the difference? Number one. Number two, Hashem doesn't trust his own judgment. He has to rely on us. What's going on? So explains there a very powerful idea. It's like this. Baal Shem Tov has another teaching, which is, it's based on the Rasag, which is ha'etzem. When you touch the essence, even if you're touching a part of it, you have all of it. In other words, when you're talking about features, so one feature is distinct from another feature. When you're talking about the essence of whatever it is you're looking at, and the essence is the essence, it doesn't matter what you're looking at. Right? So in other words, it's true in concepts, right? You have a core kernel idea, and that idea manifests in a bunch of ways. So if you're talking about the manifestations, then one is distinct from the other. But if, in whatever particular manifestation, you got to the kernel essence idea, then you have that kernel essence idea in any of the manifestations, because you got the kernel, you got the essence. Right? This is what a good brisk chakira is. A good Rosh Hashiva's teaching is give you 10 Gemaras. This is what a lot of Rosh Hashivas try to do, successfully or less successful, but this is what they try to do. And you get to what's the underpinning kernel idea that's being discussed there, and then it manifests in 10 different laws. Right? So you're trying to get to the essence of whatever it is. So when you touch the essence, you have the whole thing. That's the teaching. Now, if every Jew has an essential part of Hashem, so in some sense, everything, in other words, the Jew, as in having a part of Hashem in him, is connected to the very essence of Hashem. Now, if that's the case, they're like this. A Jew can't be punished against his own will. He can't be punished against his own will. The essence of Hashem, are you going to force the essence of Hashem to go through a certain punishment? Can't happen. So what they have to do is to trick him, as it were, to agree to his own punishment, agree to his own judgment. And therefore, Baal Shem Tov is teaching this to us because he wants to know how powerful your neshama is. Your neshama is so powerful, nothing can control you. You're the only one who can control yourself. To the point that when you go upstairs, they can't even control you up there. You have to agree. But you should know they're going to trick you into agreeing. That's just going to happen. So the reckoning is going to happen because they're going to find a way to get you to agree. But no, now here living in this world, your neshama is that powerful that nothing can control it. It's reflected here in a perverse version where Bilam is cursing himself rather than cursing somebody else, but really cursing himself. And it goes in the positive and the negative. You write your own script. You curse yourself, as it were, by telling yourself you're a certain type of person, and you bless yourself by telling yourself you're a certain type of person. You have the same capacity to tell yourself about yourself. Nobody else should be able to tell you who and how you are. Even Bezdin Shamayla can't tell you how you're going to be punished. You have to do it to yourself. So you're certainly how much more so living in this physical world, knowing what you tell yourself is valuable. You have that power to either cast yourself, judge yourself in a positive way, and thus empowering you to do better, or like Bilam, curse yourself by blaming it on somebody else. Okay, have a wonderful day. With Hashem, we'll continue tomorrow. And I hope to get this technical issue fixed.